My favorite chapter was kind of about the dark side of human nature, the shadow. Confront your dark side and make it work for you, as opposed to repressing it, right? So everybody has a dark side. I don't care if you're Mahatma Gandhi or whomever, you have a dark side, right? And it comes out in ways that you're not even aware of. And I explain in the book where our dark side originates from. You know, as a child, we had a lot of powerful emotions that we couldn't control. We would hit our sister. We would play terrible practical jokes, and I'm not talking kind of mean and aggressive, but also we'd be very loving, which is true as well. We'd be a full range of things. And then you learn as you get older, Robert, you can't hit people in school. Stop that, don't be like that. Don't play those practical jokes, it's bad, people don't like it. And you get older and older and you start repressing those kind of feelings that are very natural to you, right? Because we all have aggressive impulses. We love our parents, but there's also a side of us that doesn't like them. We resent them. It's natural. But we have to repress all that because we have to be good social animals. We have to be good little kids. We have to be little angels at school. We have to be angels at work. All this pressure, like, I've got to repress all that. I've got to be this perfect person. I have to be someone who pleases, who's very nice, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're 28, you start becoming addicted to alcohol and you don't know why. You start getting really angry, you have anger issues, you yell at people, you don't know why. You're like a 45-year-old person with a very steady profession. You leave your wife and you run off with a 19-year-old, destroying everything that you built. The dark side has come out because you repressed it instead of dealing with it. So the idea was you need to understand your dark side, confront it, and make it work for you. And I have a dark side. I have, every chapter in the book, sometimes now I think that my answer wasn't the right answer, but I'll go with it anyway.
It's all good.
In writing the book, I kept having to say, I wrote a chapter on narcissism. Robert, you're a narcissist, I wrote a chapter on the dark side. I go, Robert, you have a dark side. The same thing with the chapter on aggression. And what is my dark side? And I had to analyze it and deal with it and think about it. And think about how any success I've had in life is because I managed to use those dark emotions in my work and channeled them, because they have tremendous energy to them. They power you forward. So I had anger coming out of working in Hollywood. I kind of hated the environment. I hated people's hypocrisy. I hated all the sycophancy and all that. I was really angry, but I didn't let the anger turn inward. I channeled it into the 48 laws of power. So I used my dark side. And I really liked that law because it showed me that I'm a victim of this, but I also unconsciously learned how to use what I'm writing about. So I kind of drew on my own experience. Sometimes those dark energies have more kind of power behind them. They impel you. And love, it just kind of love doesn't necessarily make you want to write a book, although it can. But for me personally, I'm speaking from personal experience, it wasn't love that made me want to write a book. It was anger and bitterness, right? I love this, I love that. It's not gonna. And the reason why that happens is people in our day-to-day life are so repressed. We have to be so politically correct. We have to be so pleasant and smiling, etc., that when your work expresses anger or expresses pain, people love it. They're drawn to it because finally someone's expressing what I'm feeling, but no one else is talking about. Right?
That's powerful,
Yeah. The person that I think a lot about in the dark side is Kobe Bryant. I was going to talk to him about it if I could have. Because he confessed this. He had a lot of dark energy. He had a lot of anger, and he was so competitive. He wanted to crush you on the basketball court. He spoke of it in those terms. It wasn't like a friendly little basketball game. This was war. But like Michael Jordan, he channeled this energy into being a good teammate and to just defeating the other team, working as a good player, a colleague with his teammates, but he learned to channel it. Early on, it kind of destroyed him a little bit. It kind of ruined his relationship with Shaq in a way. But then he learned that dark, that anger, etc., was the source of his power. It's kind of like Star Wars and Jedi type thing, you know, and how you use that dark energy and transform it into something positive. Yeah, because that's not, the goal in it is not like beating other people and humiliating them. That's the dark side, and that's giving into the dark side. The goal is to be the best at your sport, to win a championship, and then to give back to the community, to make a lot of money, and then donate a lot of it, or become, you know, like LeBron has done with the schools in Ohio, etc. To be a good role model. But when you reach the top, you have that luxury. And so it's more like, what are you doing this for? So when I had my 48 Laws of Power, I'm sorry to talk always about myself, it's kind of the narcissist in me.
It's all good.
I admit it. You know, it wasn't about making fun of all those Hollywood executives who I disliked. Then it wouldn't have been the book that it was. It was, I want to help people. I want to use my energy, my frustrations, to show people that they don't have to suffer the way I suffer, other people suffer in the work world. These are the laws of power. You don't have to be so naive. You can understand that you don't need to never outshine the master. So I was able to put my energy in there and get some of my yayas out in doing it, but for a higher purpose, to help people.
Right.
I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell people, you feel anger. There's a lot of injustice in this world, particularly nowadays, right? A lot of things are just wrong in this world today. And if I were young, my anger would be exploding because there's so much that's wrong. Channel it into a worthy cause, into justice, into leading some kind of movement. That's a brilliant way to take your dark energy and metamorphose it into something really positive.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, because in my last book, Martin Luther King was one of my heroes that I wrote about. He had some of those frustrations and some of that anger. You know, he grew up in Atlanta where there wasn't as much racism because he was in a relatively good neighborhood. His father was a preacher. He saw racism, but he was a little bit shielded from it. And then he had his first encounters, particularly when he went up north to like Boston. Believe it or not, it was in the north that he had his first real encounters. He had a few before that, and then he's like, God, he was really angry about it. It really was an eye-opener. And he learned that he couldn't give into that kind of emotion. What he was going to do with his life is he was going to use it to help blacks in the South. He was going to return to the South. His path, he thought, was to stay in Boston, New England, because it was like cushy, etc. But then he realized, no, I've got to take all this bitterness that I feel and I've got to go back to the South at the risk of my own life and help my people, you know? So working for a cause is probably the best way you can channel some of that dark energy.